What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Fight Out podcast. Today, we are breaking down UFC 314 this upcoming weekend. Hell of a card. Took a bit of a knock, obviously, with the Prates Neil fight falling out, but still one hell of a card. Return of Paddy the Baddy, getting his big test. Return of Volk, a favourite of ours, and a lot to get into. So, before we dive in, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the predictions. We've got a lot of stuff coming. We're going to be talking to some fighters. I'm going to be getting a few things going on the pod, which is good. But appreciate the support as always. So jumping in at the top of the card, obviously the main event needs no introduction. Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, the return of Volk. Now, I think I'm with every fan when we all want to see Volk ride off into the sunset, get his win, get his belt back, all of that kind of stuff. It's a weird position for him, coming off the two big losses, taking a bit of time off. Probably realistically thought he was fighting Ilya up until, the official announcement of this fight. Now, Lopez has been on a tear. He's been really effective in the featherweight division. He's been arguably, the best. He put it this way, he's exactly where he deserves to be right now. Recently he's been outside of Ilya, the best featherweight in the division. His run of form's good. He looks like he's beating everybody. He's coming in with a hell of a lot of confidence, and he's coming in on a good, run in terms of fights and who he's beating, stuff like that. Volkanovski is coming off a layoff, which I usually am all for strength of schedule. I think in this case it was definitely needed. It doesn't take a brainiac to work that out. He fought quite quickly after getting knocked out by Islam, which a lot of people were worried about at the time. Who knows whether that played into what happened against Ilya? Like, Ilya is so dangerous, he's so powerful. He might have found Volk's chin anyway. But for me in that first round, Volk looked a little bit like he was sort of leaning back a bit more than he usually does. He's usually quite aggressive coming forward. He was still doing that. But I think a lot of it was he was worried about what was going to be coming back the other way eventually. And obviously Ilya caught him. Now, this fight for me is kind of a toss-up, and it sounds strange saying that with Volkanovski, because I would have backed him massively if he weren't coming off the losses. Now I'm just going to get up on my phone the odds. I've already got me prediction for the record, but I'm just going to get the odds up on my phone so I can have a look to see what they actually are. Because I think Lopez might be the favourite. So going into it, I know Volkanovski is the favourite, 8-11, which, to be honest, I fancy Volkanovski to win. I think it's going to be a 5-round war. I think the two of them are going to come, they're going to bring it. It's going to top off a brilliant card. I'm going Volkanovski. Now, I've kind of discussed the main events quite quickly there, and got my prediction in. And probably because I want to talk about the co-main, more than any other fight on the card. We've got Michael Chandler against Paddy the Baddy Pimlet. Paddy's from literally round the corner from where I'm recording this right now. He went to my school. I've spoke to him in school and stuff like that. I obviously want him to win, is my point being, but I'm coming at this from an unbiased point of view. I think this Paddy the Baddy fight is going to be fight of the night. I really do. I think styles make fights. I think Michael Chandler's style obviously is very, very exciting. And I think Paddy's got that in him for it to be an exciting fight for however long it lasts. The reason why I say however long it lasts is I've got a feeling someone's getting finished here. I think someone's getting finished either way. Now, I've looked at a lot of interviews with Michael Chandler recently, everything Paddy's put out. I've looked at pros talking about the fight. I've really gone into this one more than usual because I'm completely unsure. And obviously part of that comes down to I am biased. I want to see Paddy win. I seen MMA Guru actually say, how many times am I going to say Michael Chandler can put someone away in the first round without him actually doing it? And that is true. When we think of Michael Chandler, we think of explosive, the big right hand, the big left hook that knocked down Dan Hooker, began the finishing combo. But he hasn't done it since. Dan Hooker is the only person that he finished like that. He finished Tony in the second, obviously, just outside the first. Other than that, he's lost. Obviously, he's lost to the creme de la creme. I'm not trying to say it in that way. But this big right hand that we all think he seems to have, people can take it. Now, obviously, I'm talking about Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira. I don't know how Paddy compares to them because this will be the first step up, like real step up that we're going to see Paddy have. Obviously, he's fought Tony, but Tony was on the backside of his career. He's fought Bobby Green, which was, I felt, was a kind of level playing field to Tony at the time. This is a bigger step up. At the same time, you could argue Michael Chandler's on the back end. Well, he definitely is on the back end, but I mean, in terms of ability, have we seen the best of Michael Chandler? We probably have, in all honesty. And I think that plays into Paddy's hands a little bit. Paddy's kind of going up as Michael's coming down. So with the confidence going into it, with the way Paddy is finishing people as well, he's not just grinding out results. He is finishing people. He's subbing people. He's aggressive. He's looking for the finish. I think it's going to play into Paddy's hands a bit because the method to victory here for me is Paddy keeping him at range, waiting either for Michael to jump in or waiting for an opportunity to try and get Michael down and sub him. I've seen him saying he's going to stand on the feet with Chandler, which, you know, Chandler's not this elite boxer or anything like that, but he's a very, very good striker. And I think Paddy's game is getting him down and getting him finished as quick as he can, which I can see happening. Charles Oliveira kind of done the same thing. He kept Chandler at range. Obviously, Charles didn't get the finish, but I think Paddy's more aggressive than Charles in terms of finishing right now. And I know Charles has got the most submissions in the UFC before anyone comes at me. I'm just talking about right now the stages in their career. Charles knew the risk of that fight of getting beat. It was a number one contender spot. Paddy obviously needs this to get into that, you know, title contender picture, which he said numerous times. But, you know, if Paddy does get beat here, it's not over. I know fans will come out and say, oh, he's not that good, he's a hype train. But if Paddy gets beat here, fights Moicano next, beats Moicano, all of a sudden he's fighting number 7, number 8 in the lightweight division again. So it's not a be-all and end-all for Paddy. It is a be-all and end-all for Michael Chandler. I think if Michael Chandler gets beat by Paddy now, coming off the loss against Charles, coming off the losses he's got in the UFC, leaves him in a weird spot. He's been beat by the top of the top, and Paddy might get to the top and be the top of the top, but right now he's not. So if Michael Chandler is getting beat by number 12 in the lightweight division after losing, you know, however many fights he's lost 4, hasn't he, in the UFC? He's 2-4. Doesn't look good for him. I can see the methods of victory being a submission by Paddy Pimblett. I'm not going to pick around. I'm not going that specific, but I think a better man that I am, I'm going to go submission. The odds aren't currently out for it, at least on Sky Bet anyway. So Paddy just to win is 4-6. Paddy's actually the favourite coming in, which doesn't surprise me because it's the UK bookies. Michael Chandler being 5-4 could end up being really good value for money though. But so far, I'm going Volkanovski and I'm going Paddy as well. Next, we have, I think it's the Bryce Mitchell fight. Let's just check the running order of the events. Yeah, it's Bryce against Gene Silva. I mean, look, Bryce Mitchell's an idiot. You know, there's no way you can defend what he said. But in terms of, like, probably the perfect fight for him to come back and like, kind of, you know, take his anger out for what happened. There's, like, you know, the Jackson podcast, obviously the backlash of what he said. It's indefensible. I'm not trying to make that point. But in terms of, like, a comeback fight for him almost, because, you know, he was nearly cancelled, basically, and rightfully so. This type of fight is probably what he needs. And I think we've seen that in the press conference. You know, I don't like to look into press conference antics too much. But when he said you're barking up the wrong tree, motherfucker, I thought, oh, Bryce is fired up here, and he doesn't like this kid for whatever reason. Bryce needs a win, by the way. You know, he's been a little bit kind of hit and miss. You know, he's been win one, lose one kind of vibe. Needs a good run. He looked like he was going right to the top, and then he's obviously had a couple of hiccups on the way, which happens to everybody. And I think I'd imagine he's the underdog. Let me check. Yeah, he's a big underdog as well. He's 5-2, a 5-2 dog. Now, I don't know if it's that wide. I'll be honest with you. I think I can understand why Gene Silva is the favourite. You know, because of recent results from Bryce and stuff like that. But it's two very similar fighters. Bryce is 17-2. Gene Mitchell won't be more than that. If Gene Mitchell is 15-2. Gene Silva is 15-2. So, you know, less fights. He had a good win. Against Baghdasaryan, beat Drew Dober and stuff like that. Bryce is obviously, like I said, a little bit hit and miss lately. Got beat by Ilya, got absolutely starched by Josh Emmett. But he's beat Danny Ige and he beat Kron Gracie. Now, the Kron Gracie fight was a little bit of a joke, but you can only fight who's in front of you. With that being said, at 5-2, I think Bryce is crazy value. I fancied him anyway before that, and obviously the odds kind of make it a little bit of a no-brainer for me because that's a close fight. Could go either way. I'm not supremely confident in Bryce, but I'm liking those kind of odds where it's worth it basically for the builder. So I'm going Bryce Mitchell to add to that. As it's treble, that's already at 9-1. So these odds are climbing quite quickly, and we've still got other fights to put on. Now, the next fight on the card is a good one for me because I really, really, really like Yair Rodriguez. I love his style of fighting. I think he's unfortunate in terms of if he was in the featherweight division at a different time, I think he'd be closer to a championship. He had earlier in there, he obviously had Volkanovski in there, Max in there. Real elite fighters. Now, the featherweight division, to be fair, is always kind of elite. There's always pound for pound number ones in the featherweight division, or pound for pound, top fives, let's say, at least in the featherweight division. You had obviously Jose Aldo. You had Conor at the time who beat Aldo, who I don't think ever got the number one pound for pound ranking. But he was definitely in there. You had Max. You had Volk. Now you got Ilya. Obviously, he's just vacated. And if Volk comes back and wins and maybe strings together 2 or 3 wins, I'd imagine he'd be right back up there in the pound for pound as well. Which is unfortunate for Yair because he is a very highly skilled fighter. 19-5 record against Patricio Pitbull. Now, Patricio Pitbull is obviously coming in on his debut fighting Yair Rodriguez. And the UFC seems to be doing this now, where when someone comes in from a different organisation, they try and match them up with somebody tough. I think first and foremost, it's kind of sink or swim for them. But secondly, it reflects well on the UFC because most of the time they get beat. Michael Chandler was the exception. Michael Chandler beat Dan Hooker, but it didn't look bad on the UFC and it didn't look bad on Dan Hooker at all for getting beat by Michael Chandler. The other one was Kaya Sakura. Obviously, he got rolled. And now Patricio is coming in and he's fighting a tough fight in Yair Rodriguez. When you compare the names and stuff like that and who they're fighting, Patricio's got a lot more fights. Obviously, no doubt about it. But Yair is definitely fighting the tougher competition more recent. Patricio fought Sergio Pettis, he got beat. Fought Suzuki, got beat. And his last win was Jeremy Kennedy in the Champion Series of Bellator. Now he is fighting Yair. I think it's a tough fight for us to judge because it's tough to judge the level of competition and stuff like that. But realistically, you're going to back Yair. He is fighting the better opposition. He's 1-2, so he's quite a strong favourite, to be fair. Patricio Pitbull is 13-8. So if you did fancy him, he's definitely a good one for you for building odds on your bet. But I'm going Yair Rodriguez. I think it'll probably go the distance, to be honest with you, from what I've seen of both fighters. Now, the last fight on the main card now is the light heavyweight fight. So it's Krylov against Dominic Reyes. Obviously moved up as Carlos Prates against Jeff Neal, fell out, and Carlos Prates is fighting Ian Gary on short notice for Ian Gary, as well as Carlos Prates, completely different style of fight. And that's a fight night headliner, I believe, in a couple of weeks. Can't remember what number it is, but it's coming soon. Can't wait for that one. Krylov against Dominic Reyes. I mean, I think Krylov's not on the run at the minute, isn't he? He's getting up. He's getting up towards the top. He's had a lot of fights. He needed to string this together because I think he was starting to almost be that win one, lose one fighter. And in fact, not almost, he was that. He's on a 3-fight win streak right now. Previous to that, his best win streak, I think, was 5 fights, but it was years ago. Let's check. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 5-fight win streak years ago. You're talking UFC 201 and stuff like that. So it's his best win streak for a while. Actually, they went on a 4-straight win streak, but it was outside the UFC. So, you can make it out what you will. He beat Gustafsson, he beat Ozdemir, and he beat Ryan Spann. They're 3 big names, especially Gustafsson. Ozdemir was kind of trying to make a comeback, weren't he? That was in 2022, though, and then he fought Ryan Spann in 2023. He's had a lot of time off. But I think at light heavyweight and heavyweight, it is a little bit more, it's different. You can take time off and kind of come back and stuff. Dominic Reyes is definitely trying to make a comeback himself. He's had back-to-back wins for the first time in a while. He went on that run, obviously didn't he, until he lost to Jones. Then he went on a bit of a skid. And most recently he beat Anthony Smith. But if we're being honest, I think Anthony Smith, God bless him, beat himself in the Warhouse alone. But at the end of the day, you can only beat who's in front of you. I'm not convinced by Dominic Reyes as of yet. I think this will be a big telling fight for where he is at. I'd imagine these odds are quite even. I mean, again, I'm wrong, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Krylov is 8-15 favourite. Dominic Reyes is 6-4. I don't know where to get that from, to be honest with you. But hey ho, you can only go with what's in front of you. I was kind of torn. I wanted the odds to be even to kind of justify it. Now I'm thinking, am I missing something with Krylov? But I don't think I am. I think it's they're just going off ranking there. He is number 9 in the world. I was probably swaying towards Krylov. The odds have kind of made me think I should have been swaying towards him more. But I'll go with my gut feeling initially. I'll go with Krylov. Anyway, but to be honest, that's one of them fights that could really go either way. Like if you can get an Akuma, if you can pick the right person in that fight, you're really confident in Krylov, fair enough. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one with the layoff and stuff like that. So I'll put him on, but tentatively. That concludes the main card. Now, there's some good fights outside of it. You've got Danny Ige fighting Sean Woodson. Big fight, good fight. Obviously, Ige former opponent of the main event. And also Bryce as well. Darren Elkins is fighting Julian Erosa. I fancy Julian Erosa to get that one done. Jim Miller against Chase Hooper. I love Chase Hooper. He's just got something about him that I really like. I think it's a tough fight for Jim Miller. Quite a nice one for Chase. I think we can see him getting that one done. And it's the return of Mikhail Alexeychuk against Trezian Gore, which I fancy Alexeychuk. So there's a decent few fights that you can kind of get a bet on there that'll boost your odds and stuff. I'm going to put Alexeychuk on. I'm also going to put Krylov on, and I'm going to put Danny Ige is evens, but I think that fight could go either way. So it's kind of because Woodson's 4-5 as well, so it's a tough one to call. Chase Hooper's 1-8, so he's just not worth it. I mean, with that as a sixfold, so that sixfold would be Nikita Krylov, it would be Mikhail Alexeychuk, it would be Yair Rodriguez, it would be Bryce Mitchell, it would be Paddy the Baddy, and it would be Alexander Volkanovski. That is a 30-1 sixfold, so it's quite a nice one, to be fair. I'll make another video about what it can mean for lightweight and stuff if Paddy wins, what it means if Chandler wins. But I'll keep this prediction show kind of short and leave it here. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree with me. I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of people that are disagreeing with my predictions on this card. I can see people backing Paddy. I can see people backing Diego. I can see a lot of people who'll be watching a lot more Bellator and stuff like that. And the backing, Patricio, things like that. And obviously, Gene Silver, I think, is going to be that'll be a controversial one, to say the least, that I've gone with Bryce Mitchell. So let me know down below. Give it to me. Let's have a little chat in the comments. Let's get some conversations going. It is a Fight Al UFC event this week, unfortunately, for the UK UFC fans. We have got to stay up late. Alarms will be set. Red Bull will be drank. But it's definitely going to be a good one. So thanks, everyone who's made it to the end of this video. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.